The night was supposed to be perfect. A glittering charity gala hosted inside Manhattan's tallest skyscraper, with every flash of a camera reflecting wealth, power, and prestige. Billionaire tech mogul Damien Riker stood at the center of it all, his name echoing to the crowd like royalty. Men admired him. Women envied the ones near him. He had it all, until one woman deliberately shattered his illusion of control. She wasn't supposed to be there. Maya Ellis, a young black woman, in a modest staff uniform, weaving through tables to serve champagne. Her gaze wasn't that of a server, though. It was calculating, focused, burning with intent. To everyone else, she was just another background figure. But to Maya, every second ticking by was a countdown. When she finally reached Damien's table, her hand trembled slightly, not from fear, but anticipation. In front of investors, journalists, and political figures, she did the unthinkable. She spilled a full glass of red wine across Damien Riker's pristine white tuxedo. The room froze. Cameras flashed. Gasps erupted. Damien's icy glare could have shattered glass. Security rushed toward her, but Maya didn't flinch. Not even when Damien hissed through clenched teeth, "Do you know what you just did?" Her answer was calm, deliberate, and chillingly soft. "Yeah," she whispered. "I just saved your life." The billionaire had no idea that within 20 minutes, the rooftop of his empire would be engulfed in chaos. And the only reason he'd lived to tell the story was because of the girl he wanted arrested. 2 weeks earlier, Maya Ellis had been invisible to the world. Or at least, it felt that way. Working double shifts at Riker Tech's headquarters as a janitor during the night and a server during private events, she existed in the blind spots of power. But invisibility had its perks. People forgot she was there, and that meant she heard things she was never meant to hear. Her mother always told her she had a habit of sticking her nose where it doesn't belong. But that habit had saved lives before, once during her nursing internship, when she caught a patient's medical error that everyone else missed. But this time, it wasn't about medicine. It was about murder. Maya's routine was simple. Mop floors, wipe glass walls, clean the executive lounge. But one night, while scrubbing the marble outside Damien Riker's office, she overheard a conversation between two men. One was Riker's head of security. The other, a foreign investor she'd never seen before. They spoke in low tones, but she caught fragments. "Shipment tonight. He doesn't even know what's coming. Make it look like an accident after the gala." Her blood ran cold. She leaned closer, heart pounding, trying not to breathe too loud. She didn't know everything, but she knew enough to recognize the setup. Someone was planning something terrible, and the target was Damien Riker himself. Maya could have walked away. It wasn't her business. A billionaire's life had nothing to do with hers. But there was something about the tone, the calm, casual cruelty, that reminded her of her father's death. He'd been an underpaid factory worker who tried to warn management about a safety issue, only to be ignored. The explosion that followed killed him and 3 others. The company called it a tragic oversight. She wasn't about to watch another man die because people in power ignored the invisible voices. So she started digging. Quietly, she used her janitor's badge to access floors after hours, copied fragments of emails left open on computers, and even checked trash bins for shredded notes. What she found terrified her. A security override code was being scheduled for the night of the gala, a brief window where all surveillance and emergency locks would go offline. It was perfect timing for a hit. But how do you warn a man who thinks you're beneath him? Every attempt she made to reach Riker's office was blocked by assistants or guards. Her emails were ignored. She even slipped an anonymous note into his briefing folder. It was dismissed as a prank. So she did the only thing left she could think of: force him to see her. And that meant making a scene. So she planned it. The wine spill wasn't an accident. It was a signal, a desperate attempt to trigger a chain of events that would draw attention to her before it was too late. She just didn't expect what would happen next. The security guards dragged Maya out of the ballroom. Cameras caught every second. A young black woman being escorted out, while a furious billionaire shouted at her from across the room. Within minutes, social media lit up with hashtags and outrage. People argued whether Damien had overreacted, whether she'd done it on purpose, whether it was a publicity stunt. But behind the scenes, things were far darker. In the chaos, Maya managed to slip a flash drive into the jacket pocket of one of Riker's aides, the same aide who always carried Damien's emergency contact tablet. On that drive were copies of the files she'd gathered, security overrides, suspicious transactions, and coded communications between executives and foreign investors. Her hope was simple, that Damien's team would find it before the night was over. She sat in a small holding room, waiting to be handed over to police, when she felt the entire building tremble. A muffled boom echoed from somewhere above. The lights flickered. Shouts filled the hallway. Within seconds, the fire alarms blared. Through the one-way glass, she saw guards running, people screaming, smoke starting to curl from the top floors. Her heart stopped. It was happening. The assassination attempt wasn't theoretical anymore. Moments later, the same guard who dragged her and returned, panic written all over his face. "Where did you hear about this?" he demanded, slamming his hands on the table. She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, "You'd better check the flash drive." Upstairs, Damien Riker was being pulled toward the emergency staircase when he got a call from his aide, breathless, terrified, saying, "Sir, the file she left, you need to see this." When Damien saw the data, his entire world tilted. Every coded email, every timestamp, every payment trail led to his own inner circle. His security chief, the very man he trusted with his life. The plan was to detonate a pressure device near the helipad as a distraction, then frame a rival firm. But the blast had gone off early. Maya had been right. By the time he was escorted down 40 floors, smoke billowed into the night sky. Dozens were injured. 2 security staff members were missing. Reporters swarmed the streets below, calling it a terror scare. But for Damien, none of it mattered except one thing, finding the woman he'd just humiliated. When he found her, sitting silently in the corner of the emergency hall, he didn't speak. He just stared. She looked up at him, eyes calm, as if she'd been expecting him. "You knew," he finally said. She nodded. "I told you I saved your life." The next 24 hours changed everything. Investigations swept through Riker Tech. The FBI got involved. Damien's security chief was arrested while trying to flee the country. The plot was bigger than anyone realized. An industrial sabotage designed to manipulate stock prices, orchestrated by competitors and insiders. But in the public eye, none of that mattered yet. What people saw was a headline: "Black employee exposes billion-dollar conspiracy." Yet, Maya didn't feel like a hero. She was suspended for unauthorized data access. She received threats online. And Damien, despite knowing the truth, hadn't defended her publicly. Until that morning, when he stepped onto the stage for his televised press conference, the world expected another damage control speech. Instead, Damien did something uncharacteristic. He admitted everything. He told the story of the girl who had risked everything to save him, even when no one believed her. "She didn't ruin my night," he said, voice shaking slightly. "She saved my life." The crowd erupted. Maya watched from the back of the room, hidden behind journalists. Tears welled in her eyes, not because she wanted credit, but because she'd been seen. For the first time in her life, someone in power had said her name with respect. But that moment came with a twist. Damien announced he was stepping down temporarily from his role, appointing Maya as the head of a new internal ethics division, the very system she had exposed as broken. She was stunned. She didn't want power. She wanted change. And Damien, for all his flaws, knew that was exactly why she deserved it. Months passed. The scandal reshaped the corporate world. Whistleblower protections strengthened. Several major executives were arrested. And quietly, Maya's life transformed. She still took the subway to work, still wore simple clothes, still ate lunch with janitors and clerks instead of executives. But when she walked through Riker Tech now, people noticed. They greeted her by name. Damien visited her office one afternoon. He looked different, humbled, grateful. The tension that once existed between them had turned into mutual respect. "You knew I wouldn't listen," he said quietly. "So you made me listen." She smiled. Sometimes the only way to save someone is to make them angry first. For Maya, it was never about fame. It was about breaking the cycle, about proving that the most overlooked voices often see the most. Her story spread through universities, social media, and documentaries. People called her the girl who pissed off a billionaire to save his life. But behind the headline was a deeper truth. That courage doesn't come from power or wealth. It comes from conviction. And sometimes, change in the world doesn't start with a microphone or a boardroom. It starts with a mop, a conscience, and the will to do what's right, even when no one's watching.